Hi, welcome to Be Swift Art. Have you ever wondered which watercolor paper to choose? There's so many out there. Do you want to do a heavier paper like 300 pound, or is 140 okay? And what about 90? So today's video I want to compare some different watercolor papers for you. I have, I believe, 6 different ones to show you, and none of them are bad, but there's a little bit of differences between them. So hopefully we can experiment a little bit and see what's what, so you can make your own decision on what paper works best for you and the way that you paint. So the first one we're going to try is a new one for me. I've done a few paintings on it, and so far so good, but this is called New York Central Art Supply. It's 100% cotton watercolor paper. I do look for 100% cotton. That's always the best for absorption, and also I like to make sure everything's acid free. So those are the things that if I'm going to have a painting that I'm going to sell, it's going to be 100% cotton paper, acid free, and just so to make sure that it's going to last a good long time. And also the cotton helps your different techniques, helps you be more successful with those techniques. So when I tell my students that what paper to use, they can use whatever they can afford. I mean, that's fine, but those two things, that it's cotton and acid free, are the main things for me. So okay, so let's try out this New York Central paper. Put it aside, and I have here a little piece that I've just taken off of the block. It's a little hard to focus in here, but there we go. Okay, so I am just gonna grab me a flat brush, like this here, like that. So this is a 3/4 inch flat brush, and I am going to just see how it kind of performs. I'm just trying to pick a color. I'm doing sap green. So I'm loading up my brush here, and let's just see what it does. So this will be dry paper and wet paint, so wet on dry, and I'm just going to kind of do a little brush stroke there. I got a little odd there. There we go. So just kind of do there. Now you can see, kind of did a leaf in there. Let me do it again for you. Just kind of a little bit of a leaf. And we can kind of start to see the texture going on in there. And now I'm just going to take a little bit of my rose. I'm not really doing a painting or anything, but I just kind of want you to kind of see. Let's move this over. How this is going to perform here. So the texture's pretty nice. Pretty nice there. Start of a rose. And now I'm just going to take and drop a little bit of color in there. And see how that's going to spread out for me. It blends nicely. Let's put a little bit of water there. And just see how it settles into the paper with the texture and everything with the wet on wet. So this is a two-sided paper. So one side is smoother than the other side. So this side here, I believe, is the smooth side, and then I have a textured, the side on the other side has a little bit more texture to it. You can see the paint kind of settling into the texture of the paper here, but it's pretty smooth. Pretty smooth there. Okay, so that's this one. This is the New York Central Park paper. What I like also about this is it's not as expensive. It's almost, I'd say, half price. So I found it, I believe, at, I want to say it was Cheap Joe's. It would be Cheap Joe's or Jerry's Artorama. So I can't remember now because it's been a little while. I've done several paintings with it and I've liked it. So yeah, you can see it kind of settling in there, and I'll take another look at this once it's all dry. So I'm just going to set this aside. And the next one we're going to try is Canson. Put this one over here. Okay, here's the Canson. There we go. I hope I don't make you dizzy, but I want to make it close enough so you can see what we're doing, but I got to move it around a little bit so you can see all the details here. But this is also a cold press, and it is over here on the other side. It says it's 140 pound, 300 GM. So this one does not say that it's 100% cotton. And this one was given to me by somebody, and I, didn't know if they liked it or not, but I've never really painted a painting on this paper before. But this is a block, which means it's glued on all four sides. And then at the very top, there's a little, let me see if I can get that in the camera for you. There's a little space, see that, where I'm peeling that paper there? You can take a palette knife or butter knife and then cut all the way around the paper so that you can get it off of the block. But I like the blocks a lot, especially when you're doing plein air painting outside. You don't have to have it taped to something, and you can just set this whole thing on your lap and paint away. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. How about that? I'm just going to get me some of this sap green, and somewhere about here we'll just do a little. Well, to be fair, I didn't get as much paint on, so let's try it again. There we go. Let's do kind of a leaf. Do another one over here. Okay, so we got two leaves. Already I can see it settling down into the texture, which is a pleasant texture. I like it. It's up to you. Some people like different things, but these are cold pressed, so they have kind of a little bit of texture. It's not smooth like the hot press, and then there's a rough texture usually as well, which is really got a lot of texture. Great for landscapes and things like that. So now I'm going to take my rose and let's just do a couple strokes. See how the rose would turn out. Rose on rose. Get some more paint. So I think it's absorbing my paint well. I think it's doing that very well. And let's put a little, another color will drop in. And I can blend it. So that works well. So this one surprises me because I kind of didn't think it was very good paper. I don't know why. But so far so good. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of water and do the wet on wet and just see how that will settle in. There's that wet on wet. Try not to use as much paint this time on that. So I can see now here where I blended it in. As it's drying, it's not as smooth of a transition as the New York Central paper was. And then here on the wet, I can see it's got a little texture underneath. And we're going to let that dry and come back to see how that all turned out, but not too bad. Not too bad there. So I'm going to put that one aside. And next we have, same person gave me this one, Arteza. And this says watercolor paper. Down here it says 140 pound, 300, smooth texture, and it has two sides. So it has a textured side and a smooth side. So that's interesting. Doesn't say anything about it being acid free or 100% cotton. Oh, acid free, yes, it does say. It is cold press, dual sided, acid free, and it has some glue on it as well. Oh, there we go. Get it in frame. Okay, so let's see. How does this do with our leaf? So let's paint a leaf. Do another one. Okay, so I can see the texture of the paper, not bad. Now let's see how's it gonna do with my roses. Ran out of paint there. Okay, and then let's drop in a little bit of color here. Rinsed out my brush. I'm going to kind of coax it a little bit. Okay, so it looks okay so far, I guess. It's okay. And then I'm gonna just take some water here and then go ahead and drop it in. Wet on wet. And we'll see how this one goes too as it dries. So it's not too bad on this side. I'll tell you what I did find. I've done a bunch of little experiments just to see what different techniques, how they turn out. And I did it on this paper. So when I did it, I wasn't exactly impressed with how I got some of these here that I did. So like I did kind of, some of the techniques worked out really well on it. Like this one I scratched out, you know, up into it. This one I did kind of like a little brush. And some of it, you know, did very well. But then there was some of it that I couldn't get to do what I wanted it to do. And that was with the alcohol and also the kosher salt. Neither one of those techniques worked very well with this paper for me. So let me show you, if I can show you a few more of these. So that was with like indenting, like with a nail file, that worked okay. And you know, of course, sponging, that did fine. The only couple things I couldn't get it. So this is it on the alcohol. So I used 70% alcohol here, and it did do some effects, but not as good as other papers that I have tried. But now somebody's told me to go ahead and try using the 90% alcohol, and I've been doing that to get a little better results with that. Yeah, and that worked out pretty good. But I did a wash with it here, and I thought it was a little hard to get it even. You can see how streaky that turned out. So I think it's because it's not 100% cotton. But this would be just fine for, you know, just experimenting or painting plein air or something where you didn't have to use those techniques on it. So it looks like it would be fine for that. Okay, so that is the Arteza. Next up, I have Academy watercolor paper. This is from Baohong, pure cotton watercolor paper, and it is also, let's see here, where is it? It's 140 pound, but I don't see, I guess, the 300 GM, and acid free and 100% cotton. Okay, so let's see how this one does. Okay, so first we're going to try the leaf. And it grabs onto my brush a little bit more. So it feels nice. I like that. So I feel like I have more control with my brush. And that's probably the texture that's in it. So now let's try just to see where the roses go here. Yeah, you can see that texture in it, which I like. I do like. Okay, so then here is another stroke, and then we'll drop in some of another color in the center like we did the other ones and see how that works. I don't know, that one I didn't get enough paint on. It's not going to do anything. But then I'm just going to rinse my brush off and just kind of coax it in like this here. And see how that spreads. It spreads really nicely. I can see that already. That's spreading nicely and blending smoothly. So I do like that. So then I'm just going to do a little wet here, water there, and go ahead and drop it in. And you can see the texture of the paper. And I don't mind the texture. It's a nice texture, and it dries kind of smooth. And I've done all my alcohol and salt and all that on this paper as well, and it's worked really well. So I like this paper. This has so far been my second favorite paper to use. It's up to you though. It's whatever works best on you. So next I'm going to use, this is Saunders-Waterford. I don't have the cover for this pad because I used it to protect a painting I was working on. So I don't have that. But this one also has, you know, a textured side to it. And this side seems a little bit smoother. I can't really tell the difference too much. I'm not sure if there really is one or not. But we'll go on this side. This says the side I think is a little bit more texture. And we're going to do our leaf here. So let's see how it performs. Again, I feel like I have nice control with my brush. I feel like it's absorbing the paint nicely. So that, so far so good. And now let's try see how it's grabbing my brush nice. I like that. I feel like I can control my strokes. I think if you have better paper, you're not going to struggle so much with your paintings. Things will turn out better the first try instead of having to fight with it. And then I'm just going to drop in. I can see that this paper is really absorbed that paint I just put on there. Rinse in my brush, and now I'm just gonna kind of blend it out into, whoops, got a little too much there. Let's try this one. Just kind of blending it. I went a little wild over there. Okay. So there, it blended really nice. The transition is nice and soft. Right there where I did it right. And then here's just some water. A little bit more paint, trying to make it the same as the other ones. And let's see how that all settles in there. Okay, so so far I like it. It seems to have done, this one turned out really nice with the blending. Those ones not as much for me, but I kind of didn't do exactly the same thing, I don't think. But and then this one, we'll let this dry, this wet on wet, and see what kind of texture that it does. A lot of times they dry softer, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, then next up is arches. And you've watched my videos, then you know that arches is my favorite, so I'm a little biased on the arches. But this is also 140 pound cold press, and then down here it says it's 100% cotton, and it is also acid free. I probably just read about it to find that out because I don't see it on the cover here, but it is pure cotton, so I think that helps. And this one here has, this is the cold press, so it does have a little bit of texture to it, and that's what I usually use, is the cold press. So let's see here. I'm sacrificing watercolor paper. So it does grab my brush nicely. Doesn't feel too slippery where I don't have control. So I feel like I have control. And then here we're gonna do the roses. And I'm going to drop some color in. Rinse my brush. And then I'm just kind of coaxing it along here. That one already just kind of did it on its own nicely. That's why I like the arches, I think. I think it performs so well that I don't have to do hardly anything to get that to blend. That all blended very nicely. Very nice. And then I'm going to try the wet on wet here. Okay, and then we'll see how that all dries with its texture. So I love arches. I've used arches for probably a good 10 years, and I usually paint on 300 pound paper. When I'm doing a painting for sale, I like to use the 300 pound. It's heavier, it's almost like a cardboard, but it really controls the water well for me. So I do prefer the arches, I can tell you that, but it's just softer when it dries. You know, even though there's texture in this paper, this will just dry out to be nice and soft, so I like that a lot. The problem I've had with arches lately, and the reason why I'm experimenting with a lot of these papers, is because every once in a while I'll be doing a wash with the arches, so I'm putting paint all over the whole page and gradually making it lighter or darker, whatever it would be. And then when it dries, there'll be like a little smudge of where it absorbed too much, more than the rest of the paper. And I think it has to do with the sizing that they put in the paper. I don't get it on every sheet of paper that I buy, but when I do get it, I usually have to compromise and put something on top of it or paint over it, because to me it just shows up like a sore thumb, you know, just can't avoid seeing it. But so that's an issue I've had with the arches, and I've read that other people also have had these same issues, and I don't exactly know why. So that's why I've tried different papers, but still I keep coming back to arches. I can correct that little mistake so far. So far I've been able to correct that, and I've been very happy with arches except for that. Every technique, the alcohol, the saran wrap, salt, all performs beautifully. So, okay, so I'm gonna put this one aside now. And let's see, we've done the Saunders-Waterford, we've done the New York Center. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kinds of paper there. And I'm a little confused. I might have a little pile here of paper. Okay, so did we try? Yeah, I think we've tried all of them there. Okay, so that's the paper. And let's go back now as they kind of started to dry, although they're not finished drying. But this here, get it into the frame. This is the New York Central. And it's pretty nice. Now I can see this could be me, but if you get a little more paint in your brush when you lift off, you know, you might have that little dark area there. But see, as this dried, this blending where I dropped it in and blended it, that did pretty nice. There is a little bit of a water line here. So, you know, as it's drying, I'd be watching for things like that to blend them out. So it's okay. This is the New York Central. I like it. I can see it's drying. A little bit of texture in there. Not bad. Okay, so we'll put that one back up there to dry. Come back to the Canson. And here's the Canson, how it ended up being. And look at this. This dried very smooth. My blending did not blend very well. You can see, you know, it really didn't mingle with the paint underneath. So it either dried too fast, absorbed too much, but you know, you got to be able to have some time to work on your paper. So I don't like that. This, you know, just the wet on dry was fine. Wet on wet seems fine, but that bothers me there. So I don't know about that one. Probably we'll have to try it on a full painting and see, but I won't do anything that is too precious to me because I don't think it's going to perform like I want it to. So this is the Baohong Academy, and you know, this all wet on dry is nice and smooth. You can see how much, you know, this absorbed more than either the New York Central or the Canson. So when I lift it up and I get a little bit extra paint there on the tip of the leaf. So here is the New York Central. And let me show you that part right there. That's what I'm talking about in here. So that's from, you know, when I push down, more paint is coming out, and then less paint, and then I push up and lift off, and it leaves a little bit of a puddle, and it did not blend as well. So this blended very well, and that one I liked a lot. And here it is, the wet on wet, and it's got a little texture to it, doesn't bother me. And here's where I blended it. Don't look at that one because I remember that got too dry before I blended it. But these two, and they blended nicely without a watermark. Very nice. So this is the Baohong. I like that. And this one here is the arches. So arches also blended very well here, especially dropping in color, and also the wet on wet. Okay, let's sum it up. Which one is my favorite? Well, I would say in last place, I'm going to go with the Arteza. I didn't mind it on the rough side so much, but on the smooth side, it's super slick and it doesn't absorb at all. So on this side, it's okay, not too bad at all. But I would use it for practicing a technique or, you know, something that I probably wouldn't put too much work into a finished painting. Because it's not 100% cotton, I don't know if it's archival or acid-free, and that's kind of a standard for me. So this one would be the last place, Arteza. Okay, and then coming up next in 5th place is going to be this, it's kind of hard. I know which one is my favorite. Well, this one right here probably is 5th place. It's not a bad paper. This is the Saunders-Waterford, and it's okay. It did fine. It blended really nice here, not so much there. I mean, it just isn't quite as good as the other papers that I've tried. So, there you go. So this is the Saunders-Waterford, and I'm going to put this in number 5. Put that aside. Okay, so then we have number 4, which is going to be my New York Central, only because I don't think it absorbed quick enough. It seems like it's a little thinner. Even though it's 140 pound, it doesn't seem quite as heavy. But I do like this paper a lot, and it is fine, and it's 100% cotton. So it's fine for painting. You just might have to struggle a little more with it. I don't think it performs just as well as some of the other papers. So we're going to make that one number 4. Put that aside. So number 3. Number 3 is going to be the Canson watercolor block here. I was really surprised by this. I was not expecting it to perform well at all, but you know, here is our things that we sampled. Now this is because you can see I folded the lid on it before it was dry. I put that cover back on it, but I did like, you know, how it absorbed with the leaves here. I don't have that big mark where the puddle was. And if you don't look at the part where I smudged, the wet on wet part turned out really nice and smooth. I can see you can blend a lot of colors with it. My blending did okay. Not great, not my favorite, but it was okay for number 3. This will be my number 3 choice. Which brings me down to number 2. Number 2 is going to be the Academy Watercolor by Baohong. I like this one a lot. I've used quite a few. I've ordered it quite a few times and have done lots of paintings on it, and they all turned out beautifully. And here is our little test results. Again, that's from the wet cover being, you know, closed on top of it when it was wet still. But look at how nicely it absorbed my brush strokes. You know, they're pretty nice themselves. The blending is beautiful. The wet on wet is nice. Don't look at that part. And then the texture of the paper is really nice too. So over here I kind of played around with the blue, did a little dry brushing on there to see what the texture looks like, dropped a little alcohol in there, and it worked really well. So this is my number 2 choice. And then back to number 1, Arches, my very favorite watercolor paper. Even though of the recent little flaws in it, I'm just going to work around them because I do love the Arches. So it's also 100% cotton, acid-free, 140 pound. It turned out really nice. And here we can see what happened here. So my brush stroke, nice and even. The paper absorbed it. The blending with the dropping in of the color turned out perfect. And also the wet on wet here turned out nice too. And again, it was wet when I folded it up. But yeah, my arches is my number one, and I do like the texture on this paper quite a bit. Here's my little tests I did in the blue with the dry blush, wet on wet, and a little drop of alcohol in there. And I can tell you from, you know, hundreds of paintings that I've done using arches, my salt works great, my alcohol works great. You know, everything that I've tried on it, it works great. So if you don't want to have to struggle too much, I recommend the arches. Well, great. Thank you so much. That's the end of my video. I hope this was a little bit helpful for you, or a lot helpful for you. And if you like my videos, and if you haven't already, I'd please ask you to subscribe. And also press that like button, because that helps me with the YouTube algorithms, and it helps to get my channel more popular. So I would really appreciate that. And I hope that you have a wonderful week. And until we meet again, have lots of peace and love. Thank you. Bye-bye.